With the breaking news coming into us, and Syria opposition activists and a rebel commander are reported to have reached the suburbs of the Syrian capital Damascus. And these pictures coming into us of a toppling of a statue of President Bashar al-Assad's father in the suburbs of Damascus.
We are very much sorry for the Syrian people who became a subject of another geopolitical experiment. We are absolutely convinced of inadmissibility to use terrorists like Yad Tahrir al-Sham to achieve geopolitical purposes, as it is being done now.
Every state is only as strong as its ability to defend itself. Bashar al-Assad's weakness became very clear because he relied on foreign aid from Iran and Russia. Bashar al-Assad let corruption run rampant and he pretty much destroyed his own military. Now, with no clear path to stabilize Syria, it seems the country is on the brink of falling apart into multiple smaller states. The biggest losers in this whole situation? Well, it's Iran and Russia. Iran in particular is set to lose big because without control over a land corridor to Lebanon and Hezbollah, it strengthens Israel. All thanks to the so-called Syrian rebels who are actually Salafist terrorists. And what doesn't help is the shift in Iran's leadership. With a new, more pro-Western president, Iran is truly in a very complicated mess. As for Russia, they've lost control over Syria, and the situation in Syria might soon lead to a leadership change there. It's also a big mistake that Bashar al-Assad allowed Salafi Wahhabi groups to survive instead of crushing them when he had the chance, ultimately allowing them to take time and regroup in Idlib.
تركي إذن بجيش تركي ارتحال تار يريد تركي وفي ضباط أتراك ضباط أتراك في ضباط أتراك منين أنت؟ أنا من جنب وطنيا وكنايا يلا في أبو هذه تركيا النبي 10,000 سوري في معكم أجانب صح؟ أجانب؟ كان في بالسنة 5 أجانب غير محور لا كان في أجانب كان في أوزبك مصر وتركيا أصدقاء يعني في تعامل بين مصر وتركيا
Both Russia and Iran may pull out of Syria. Syria was once at the heart of a geostrategic battle, but now that focus has shifted to Ukraine. Russia's loss of influence in the Middle East could mean losing its base in Tartus, but in today's world of hypersonic missiles, military bases on land just don't hold the same weight, and the Russians will now need to find new, stronger allies, ideally closer to the United States. The real winner in Syria is, of course, President Erdogan. He's been playing his cards very carefully by backing the so-called Syrian rebels and pushing for an offensive in key areas like Idlib, Hama, Homs and even Damascus. But the collapse of Syria will backfire on Turkey because it will bring a huge wave of refugees, including Salafi Wahhabi extremists, into Europe. This will only make things worse for Turkey, especially with the Kurds growing stronger and less reliant on Syria, possibly pushing for an independent Kurdistan, which could weaken Turkey even more. And here's the twist, friends. The United States is setting itself up to win in this mess. By backing the Kurds, they could weaken Turkey and keep control over Syria's oil-rich regions. Whilst the American media may try to paint the situation differently, in the long run it's clear who stands to benefit and who's actually funding these so-called Syrian rebels. It's amazing to see how terrorists get a one-to-one interview with American journalists on CNN. And the coming days are going to be very dark for the European Union as well, because the European Union will begin to live under crazy tensions due to its various different positions across the Union, which will divide the European Union into a liberal bloc and a conservative bloc. And of course, when this divide materializes, Russia will obviously take advantage of the conservative bloc. So what's the bigger picture here, my friends? It's quite simple. This is like a modern day version of the old Sykes-Picot agreement, where imperial powers are carving up the region for their own interests. It's quite funny to see some Muslim brothers and sisters on social media chanting Allahu Akbar and praising these ugly Salafi terrorists, the so-called Syrian rebels. Because what's happening in Syria is all about securing economic and political interests for powers. It's got nothing to do with religion at all. Syria isn't just a battleground for its own people, it's the stage for a much larger game being played out. By supporting those rebels, they're actually supporting Israel and American interests in the region. Thanks for listening to the Independent Islamic Republic. Assalamu alaikum. Have a good night.